We are about to begin with the man who keeps us safe online. And some of us have fears about our children and their security in this fast-paced, technology-driven world. But it's okay. As the CEO, Casey Akar, said to me, Emprezz, we're going to keep this positive. Yes, we are. We're going to show you how to be safe, how to keep your children safe. And one of the greatest international speakers from Jamaica is here to share with us. He's an expert in security. His name is Trevor Forrest of 876 Solutions.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Let's just say when Emprezz asks you to do something, you really don't have a choice. You just have to say, well, okay, when? So I do have a short presentation. What I'm going to try to do this morning is to speak a little bit about AI, what it is, how it impacts our children, and then some of the positive and negative impacts, and then speak a little bit about security. My forte is really security first, then AI, then this thing called digital transformation. So let's start like this. What is this thing called AI? All right? Who in here has heard of this thing called AI? Just by a show of hands, who has heard of this thing? All right? Okay, great. So really what it is, it's just some technology that mimics human intelligence. All right? It helps in problem solving, learning, and decision making. All right? It's very interesting because you're talking about computers that act and function like people, like our brain, all right? But you'll be surprised where you find AI. And AI is not new. It's been around for a very long time. If you have an Android phone or an Apple phone, AI has existed in these devices for a very long time, over 10 years actually. If you use Google to search, I ever see Google, offering you suggestions as you're typing. That's AI, right? So AI exists in mobile phones, tablets. You see it in social media because you notice social media will present you with things that you didn't think you asked for. How does it know to do that? You might go on Amazon, you're shopping, and magically things pop up that you were either talking about or you were looking at some time ago. That's AI. So it's available in that. It's available in gaming if you're into that. But you can also find AI in learning tools, right? And this is where it becomes very interesting and useful and impactful for our children. And there are thousands of AI platforms out there. Perhaps the most popular one, ChatGPT. Everybody's heard about that. That is just one kind of artificial intelligence platform, but there are a lot of them. I've kind of alluded to some of them here. If you have an iPhone, Siri, that's AI. If you have an Android phone, when you do Hey Google, that's AI as well, right? So there are a lot of tools out there that are freely available for you to interface with AI. Needless to say, you have been interfacing with AI for a very long time, all right? So how does AI impact our children? How does it affect our children? And one of the things that undoubtedly AI does is, as we're existing in this digital world, AI provides some serious and major opportunities for our children. You too, but for our children. But in a technologically dynamic world, wherever you have opportunities, you also have some challenges and some risks, all right? I think primarily one of the greatest opportunities that AI provides to our children is in their learning experiences, in education. Because one of the things that AI can do is it can create what we call personalized learning. And what does that mean? Not everybody learns the same way. I'm sure some of us go to school and you go to certain classes and you sit in a classroom, and because of how the teacher teaches or who the teacher is, yeah, I'm not learning in this class. But you go, same subject, different teacher, everything is clear. That has to do with the environment in which you're learning. And what AI can help to do is to create an environment for learning that is specific to the needs of your children. Right? So think about a situation where every child has their own teacher that is tailored to teach them the way they learn best. That's the kind of stuff AI can do for you. Now, because of how AI works, AI tends to need a lot of information to do the magical stuff that it does. And when it is capturing all of this information, to do all of these things, a couple of challenges arise. And those major challenges have to do with how it captures the data it captures, who gives it permission to do so, and generally we call that a privacy issue, because if you can't control what is collected about you by AI in order to do the magical things it does, then it stands to reason it might collect some things that you don't want it to collect. All right? So there are always some concerns around privacy and how AI functions in the way it does, and the concerns around how it got that information to do all of these things, right? So let me quickly go through, again, some of the positive things about AI, which I've mentioned. Personalized learning. It allows for this thing called gamification of learning. Now, boys tend to like this because if it's a video game, them dep on that, right? Well, if you could take learning and make it like a video game, then they would learn better. They would enjoy it more than sitting in the classroom listening to a teacher. I talk, you sit there and listen, doesn't work for everybody. All right? So being able to enhance the academic experience is something that AI can do, and it can help to do that very well. Another thing that we also want to make sure is realized is, in today's world, we're moving very digitally. There is a huge demand for certain skills, right? It's not anymore, boy, if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, or, well, let's stick with the doctor and the lawyer part. You're not succeeding. Well, there's a whole new set of jobs out there. Coding, data analytics, right? Things that require decision making and problem solving, right? And what we've seen is that artificial intelligence plays an important role in development of that skill set in that new world that we have. So if you want your kids now to be prepared and ready for those future jobs, then learning how artificial intelligence works, getting comfortable with it, is extremely useful, so that your children will be prepared for the jobs of the future. Now, a lot of times people will say, well, AI is going to take away jobs. Well, it might, but it's going to create some new ones. And what you want to do is to make sure that your kids are prepared for the new jobs that are created in the realm of AI, all right? What else? Now, this one is particularly important because it's often overlooked. How many of us have kids who are glued to their screens, their mobile phones? Yeah? Yeah, man. Now, here's the thing. A lot of what they absorb influences how they think, what they do, how they function. And ultimately, that does have some psychological effects. You know, you have situations where children become depressed because of what they're consuming. But what it also does is, them don't want to go outside again. Everything is either on the TV screen, the tablet screen, or the phone screen, right? I don't know if your kids are like mine, but them don't get injured, them don't get cut, them not climb tree, them don't do not like that. Everything is inside, right? So, one of the things that happens is in that kind of dispensation, kids now start to depend on these devices to be their friend. And if everything they're consuming is saying that they're a bad person, they start to believe it. And then they start to get depressed. And then you start to hear kids taking them life because they don't feel that they are a good person or the best person or so on. So, AI plays a good and a bad role there. AI creates the information and the content that they see, but AI can also act as that friend in the form of chatbots and so on that help your children manage that emotional stress that they go through, right? So, bear in mind, AI can be good in one sense and bad in another. The general idea as parents is you have to yourself know what AI can do, which is why you're here, but you also have to now manage how your children interface with these different platforms that use that technology to make them feel whole, accepted, and all of that, right? So for mental health, AI can be useful as it relates to being the friend of your children, but at the same time, it can have some negative effects because AI can create an environment that they are working in, that they play in, that can be detrimental to their own mental health. And as parents, you have to be responsible. You have to monitor that stuff. In fact, listen, some of your kids not going to want you to know what they're doing on them phone, them tablet, or them computer, but understand that there is somebody, in quotes, something else out there creating that environment, and it depends heavily on AI, right? So, parents need to guide children towards a more balanced consumption of social media so that they, when they see the craziness out there, they can decipher what is true, what makes sense, what is foolishness, what to believe, what not to believe, so that they can properly function out there in the real world, right? Another thing that is also important, which is, again, where some of the security comes in, is the fact that AI collects a lot of information. A lot of information, right? When you go on social media, when you go on the internet, when you use your phone, a lot of information is captured. A lot of private information. And you have people out there who may use that information to do unsavory things, right? Now, if you have innocent children who really don't understand how the world stays and how people stay, and they start to share information with those who don't mean them any good because they don't really understand the danger of that sharing that information, then you'll find that kids are lured to some location after school, and we've heard of things like this. They're talking to people who appear as though they are children like them, but are, older people. And they start to be groomed, not by you, but by them, because this sort of technology is collecting info, and people with bad intentions, using that information to then mold your children to get them to do things that they shouldn't do. Now, how do you stop that? You have to monitor. You have to be aware, right? You need to say, listen, there are some bad people out there. There are some sites that you should go. In fact, what are you looking at? Let me see. Right? What are you watching on YouTube? What are you watching on TikTok? That kind of stuff. You have to play that part. They may not like it, and that's because they don't understand why you're doing it. Right? But it's important for you to do that because the information they're consuming is created and curated by artificial intelligence that says, hey, this is what seems to interest them, and because they're 13 years old, this is the kind of stuff that we think they will like, right? So you always want to make sure that your kids are aware of the kinds of dangers that exist in the worlds that they enjoy functioning in. Because guess what? When they're outside playing, you can see it. You can see what's happening. When they're on the device, you don't get to see that. So you now have to be more involved and aware of what they're doing. The next thing that I kind of want to touch on, because I don't have a lot of time, is where we talk about just some general things that because we're moving digital in the schools and more so at home, we're using email, teachers sending homework via email or on some learning management system at the school. There are some very basic things that we may take for granted or overlook. Email represents a threat. You wouldn't think so, right? But email itself represents a threat. Why? Because a lot of stuff can be sent via email. And if you don't have the right software to defend against these things on your devices, whether it's your phone, your tablet or your laptop, a lot of what they call malware, that's bad software, can get on your devices that can either damage the device insofar as the information that's stored in it, but those malware that get on those devices can be from people who are trying to reach out to your children and then cause them to do things that they really shouldn't do. So one of the things that you want to do is to make sure that all of the computers and devices that you have antivirus, anti-malware software on them so that it protects against all of those things that are trying to infect and influence your children. All right, in wrapping up, one of the things that I want to touch on is how do you, as parents, kind of navigate this minefield, right? You're going to get a lot of hate and dislike from your children because you're going to do some things they don't like you to do. And one of those things is controlling the amount of screen time that they dedicate to their devices, right? A couple of months ago, I took my son's mobile device from him, and he was upset. And I said, okay, let me tell you why I'm doing this. I told him, go on your device, it's an iPhone, go on your device and you tell me how much time you spent on your phone today, yesterday, and for the week. Because the phone can tell you that, right? Yeah, and he went on the phone. And he came back, and he's like, here it is. No, I said, no, tell me. And he told me, and I said, okay, tell me how much time you spent doing homework.
1 minute.
Right? And I said, give me the phone. Now, you have to get to that point where you are comfortable managing the amount of time your kids spend on their devices. Because if you don't, they will become beholden to the device. and it will distract them from the things that they really need to do. So one of the things that you really want to do is manage screen time. All right? If there's anything that you get from this little presentation, manage screen time. All right? The other thing that you want to do is to open a channel of communication with your kids. You want to get to a point where when they're online and they see crazy things, they come and tell you. So I want to make sure that when my son sees something online, he comes to me and says, hey, Dad, you would not believe what I saw on TikTok yesterday. I'm like, really, what? And he tells me. I was like, okay, so what do you think about that? Yeah, it's so dumb. I'm like, great, thank you. But you want to make your kids comfortable talking to you about what they're seeing. Because again, remember, what they're seeing is curated by this artificial intelligence technology that is trying to, in some instances, be you. But it's not a good version of you, right? So you want to make sure that when you have that discussion, you can then act as a guide to say, yeah, you know, that don't make sense, right? It don't really work that way. Yeah, I wasn't sure. That's why I told you. You want to have that open communication between yourself and your kids, which means you need to know what's going on there too. So don't feel that you can't have a TikTok or an Instagram or a Facebook or a YouTube account, because the only way you can understand what they're seeing is if you see it yourself, right? So there has to be an open line of communication, right? And that is something you always want to encourage and have with your children. And this is the part that is near and dear to me. Security. You always want to make sure that they know what to do online, how to function online, the things that they should do, shouldn't do. You want to make sure that you, as a parent, use the necessary tools to monitor what they're doing. You kind of say, well, how do I do that? Well, believe it or not, if your kids have mobile phones, if your kids have computers, there is software that you can use to tell you, in much the same way that I told you about my son, that I could have him tell me how much time he spent on his phone, right? There are tools for you that you can actually use to monitor how long they're on the phone. In fact, these tools allow you to tell where they went, and you can actually block. If you don't like where they went, you can actually block where they're going, right? And in doing so, keeps them focused, but it also removes that danger that lurks online, right? So as parents now, one of the things you have to, again, log on to is the fact that you now have to get used to some of these tools that are available to protect your children. In closing, I think one of the things that we want to always do is not detract from the fact that you don't want to be too restrictive, but you still want to give them the ability to explore, to go and find things, to go and discover things. But at the same time, when they discover it, they know that they have this channel to you to come and have that discussion. And again, say, Mommy, boy, I see this thing on YouTube. I couldn't believe it. What do you think? And you have that discussion. Because the internet, the artificial intelligence technology does many things. It shrinks the world, it gives access to information, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't manage how the information is interpreted and consumed. That's your job. It's the job of teachers too, right? So there's a lot of stuff that our kids are consuming. But one of the things that we have to do now is know what they're consuming and then manage how they're consuming it and explain some of the things that they're consuming, because we're talking kids who are 4 years old on tablets, consuming things they have no concept of. And if there's nobody to explain it to them, then guess what's going to explain it to them? The artificial intelligence algorithms that are saying, oh, because you looked at this, here is the explanation for it. And you don't want to compete with that because it moves in a completely different way from you. So you have to yourself get in the space, look at what they're looking at, and you have to now play a completely different role of monitoring, managing, advising them on what they consume, because there's a thing out there that is trying to be you, but it doesn't have your intentions. All right? So that's my 2 cents, and I think this lady here will tell me what to do next, as I'm beholden to her. I hope that helped.
Thank you so much, Trevor.
Yeah,
Thank you. We did promise, as we welcome Minister Dana Morris Dixon, our Minister of Education, newly appointed. So she's going to bless us up in a few looking at education and AI. And her vision, which was our vision, together we are going to make sure that we can thrive in this AI world. So welcome, Minister. Trevor, I did promise each speaker I would allow them an opportunity to answer just one question from anybody in the audience. Parents in the audience, anybody want to ask Trevor anything? No? CEO of 876 Solutions? Yes, we have one question for you. Trevor, please. Here's a microphone. Because we're capturing everything online, we want to make sure that we can hear you. Thank you.
Questions.
Hold on,
First question.
Press the... Yeah, there you go. One question.
So the question is, when you use, for example, like Gmail or WhatsApp, you'll realize that when you've sent an email and somebody's replying to you, you see like recommended options to send back. Does it mean that these servers, they're actually reading our messages and emails and have that information stored in their cloud so that the AI can suggest responses? So they have all our private information there, just...
Yeah, that's so when I said when you even do a Google search, when you see those suggestions, that's artificial intelligence making those suggestions. But in order to do that, it's collecting data, which is why the data privacy concerns come up. So the answer to your question is yes. So you kind of want to be mindful and careful of what you use to communicate, because the advent of AI means that information is now being collected in order to create this new experience that I'll be cool to you. The ramifications of what's happening behind the scenes is also and should also be a concern.
So it's reading your email. Careful what you email.
And the last question.
You see those students that don't listen? I said one question, but because I'm in a good mood, it's a two-part question. Part two.
Actually, it's not. So the second question, the second question quickly is in relation to, I lost my train of thought for a second there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In relation to, yes, you said monitoring the usage for the children, right, as parents.
Yeah.
But I believe in this day and age, children have become, and I want to use the word feisty, but basically I feel as parents, we have to even check ourselves, because if I am on my phone consistently, all the time, it might be for legitimate purposes, working all these things, how do you handle a situation now where you're trying to manage your child's usage, but your usage is also in excess, even if it is for good reason?
Excellent question. All right, so you're allowed, because you're big people, right? So yeah, knowing this, you kind of want to manage what your children see you doing, but don't lose sight of the fact that, yeah, I'm a big person also. What I'm trying to do for you is to get you to become a big person a responsible person, somebody who is not influenced by craziness that you might consume and don't understand. Like I said, they're not going to like you for doing it, but they're not going to understand why you're doing it, right? So there is a dual responsibility there. You want to manage how much they see you functioning because they're going to want to follow you. But know that even when they're questioning you, that part of that dialogue has to be that, look, it's not everything I understand and you don't fully yet understand why I'm doing this. Which is why in the example I gave you, I didn't tell my son how much time he was using. I told him to go and look on it and tell me if that was okay with him, which he said no. But I was not standing over him saying, look, you can't use the device and it's because I said so. I let him give me the reason. So you kind of have to be a little creative with how you manage that interaction because you don't want it to go away. You always want that channel to be open. But you have to not lose sight of the fact that, listen, if you allow the external entities to influence your child, then you are never going to have control over them because everything that they consume is reality. Nothing you tell them is going to make sense. So you kind of have to just draw that line and say, listen, this is how it's going to be until you pay rent and until you have a job and all of that,
until you buy your own phone.
Right, exactly, right? So it's a decision you have to make, but at the same time, it's a balancing act, right? Which is why I named it that, because it really is a balancing act. So it's not going to be easy sometimes, but it's something you just have to do.
Thank you, Trevor. I know you have more questions. We're going to do it off camera on the social media camera.